Alright, welcome back to Reviews by Hunter. That's me, I'm Hunter. So, I'm making this video as the sun goes down, so bear with me for the lighting, but given the movie that I'm reviewing, you know what? It kind of fits the vibes, alright? Finally, after I watched this movie, actually, I don't know, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I'm actually giving you guys a review on The Conjuring 4: The Last Rites, the final installment in the franchise, one of the best horror franchises that I've seen and that I know of. You know, this film really hyped itself up, calling this, this is the case that forced Ed and Lorraine to retire, the case that ended it all. They encountered something so terrifying and so scary that this was it. And I'll tell you this right off the bat, guys. I think the overhype hurt the movie because it didn't quite reach the expectations that I had for the movie. And by no means am I saying it was bad. As a matter of fact, I think it's a solid horror film. But I think I have certain standards for the Conjuring franchise. I just do. And especially when you tell us that this is essentially going to be the final send-off, I expect you to bring out all the fireworks, and I don't think they did that. But let's get into this, guys. The Conjuring 4: The Last Rites, okay? It takes place in 1986, okay? We get a flashback of a young Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they didn't do de-aging like I thought. They actually did use two different actual actors that just had very, very close similarities to Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. They looked pretty damn close, though, I gotta say. But we get a flashback of the Warrens investigating a haunted mirror, because that's what they do. Lorraine, a young Lorraine, touches the mirror, although Ed warns her not to, and that mirror that was sort of calling to her ends up giving her this vision about a baby who hasn't been born yet. Well, that baby is Lorraine's and Ed Warren's baby, Judy. She goes into premature labor. We can, guess that this entity forced this to happen, I guess, by their powers. They rush to the hospital, and unfortunately, the baby comes out stillborn. The baby was not breathing, and it looked like the baby was not going to make it, but thanks to the prayers of Ed and Lorraine Warren, they are able to save the baby. It seems like a miracle takes place, and Judy, the baby at the time, starts breathing again. But a very scary situation for young Ed and Lorraine Warren. All right. Now, started off strong. The movie started off strong. I didn't have anything negative about this. So far, so good. Now, we fast forward 22 years later, and we are now following a new family. As you know, there's a new family each movie that is being haunted, and this time, it's the Smurl family. They've moved into a house in Pennsylvania where Jack, the father, gives a surprise gift to his daughter, Heather. Guess what the gift is? It is an antique mirror, the exact same antique mirror that the Warrens were investigating 22 years ago. Now, right off the bat, I'm like, okay, a mirror, all right. I guess it did look pretty creepy. So this movie focuses a lot on characters and the relationship between characters, in my opinion, more than it focuses on the actual horror of the film. For some people that might work. I think for me it didn't work for me the way that I wish it would have. There was just so much of a focus on this. And as a matter of fact, we get introduced to a new character in the franchise, even though this is the final send-off, Judy's boyfriend, Tony. And honestly, he knocked his character out of the park. Tony is essentially trying to prove himself to the Warrens that he's the right guy for Judy. He kind of gives me a little bit of like golden retriever energy in a way. Just like a good-hearted kid who really, really wants to impress Judy's parents, and he is in love with this woman and wants to marry her. And so then there's a lot of conversation about whether he can handle sort of what their family does for a living and how much does he know about it, and all that fun stuff. He also presented a lot of comic relief moments, which was kind of surprising for this franchise. There was more in there than I thought, but my theater did laugh. I did laugh. I just thought it was weird that we focused so much on that instead of more of the horror elements. We have Ed and Lorraine Warren, who have taken a step back from cases due to Ed's heart disease, and also them just wanting to lead more of a normal life. So, turns out that Judy has similar powers to her mother, and she also begins having sort of visions, and she is sort of paranormal sensitive. She is able to kind of sense the same things that her mother have. She got those genes from her mother. All right, and this leads to Judy kind of wanting to follow the source of what is giving her these kind of psychic episodes. Okay, it seems to me she wanted to follow in her parents' footsteps in a way. And so yeah, there's just a lot of character relationship stuff in this film, okay? And it was okay, like it was good, but it was too much, which leads me to my next point, which is pacing. It took forever to connect the Warrens and all of their family and relationship stuff. It took forever to connect them to the Smurl haunting, okay? Which led to a bit of boredom for me at times. Now, we do see the Smurls being haunted long before the Warrens ever show up. I'll talk about that right now. The movie looks great. There's this, like, old school 80s, like, VHS tape vibe, the way that they shot it. It's very creepy. It's very low light, like, dim lighting. It feels very almost like just retro, I guess. And just looking at the house on screen, it looks like a house that's just begging to be haunted, okay? That's what it looks like. They've done similar things in the franchise. That's nothing new, but it still looks great. But yeah, the pacing was not my favorite, man. I just felt very bored at times when the horror stuff wasn't happening. I felt like, okay, how long is this going to go on, where we're just sort of have characters talking, you know, and you have Tony. There's a huge scene where they're having like a party, and Tony decides he's gonna propose to Judy, but he wants to get the blessing from Ed and Lorraine, and then him and Ed have a freaking ping pong contest. Like, it was just like, dear Lord, I get it, and the kid that played Tony did a fantastic job, but not why I came to see the film, not why I came to see a film that you hyped up as saying this is the case that ended it all. So is this movie scary? In certain moments, yes. But overall, no. Let me explain why. There's a ton of jump scares in this film. Not that they haven't done jump scares in the past, but there's a lot in this film. I did think that they were executed well. Like, I did jump, but I felt like there wasn't a huge payoff to a lot of these jump scares. There wasn't a lot of emotional payoff. And I don't know. I kind of got to a point where I started feeling like people weren't really in danger until maybe the last 20 minutes of the film. And again, the entity, which is the next thing I'm going to get into, I think the design, he looks scary. They gave a 10 out of 10 top tier design for this main demon, who I don't even know if he gets a proper name like some of the other entities in the Conjuring franchise get. I don't know if they ever actually say, but this demon is apparently supposed to be like the first one that they ran away from. And so because they ran away and didn't take care of it when they did, it's now haunting the Smurls. Okay? And this is where it gets a little bit also disappointing, is the demon has been like apparently waiting for Judy for all of these years, but we don't really ever know why. Like, if there's never an explanation, like, okay, I know Judy has similar powers to her mother, but what plans do this demon have for Judy? Why her specifically? Hell, why were they targeting Judy as a baby? I didn't quite understand that, unless maybe the demon just sort of knew, oh, this girl's going to be a threat. That's the only thing I could guess, but they never give us a solid reason, which is a little bit frustrating, because that's a huge driving force of the movie, is that this is sort of a mistake of theirs from 22 years in the past that has come back to rear its ugly head. And honestly, I could have used another 5 to 7 minutes of actual horror-related things happening on screen. I think that would have just helped it feel like The Conjuring, you know? And like I said, the visuals were great, and creepy 80s VHS tape vibes. And that does help the movie as well when the Smurl family is being haunted. But, you know, overall, I don't know. Like, I kind of didn't care about the Smurl family, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I felt bad a little bit, but as much character work as they do in the film, I feel like the Smurls are just sort of like, I don't know, they're meant to sort of be cannon fodder, but if I'm not mistaken, I don't think a single member of the Smurl family actually dies in the movie. I think one of them gets injured because the entity at one point pushes her down the stairs. And there is some spooky stuff. That, you know, we have possession, of course, in this film. Floating dolls, doors being forced shut, entities randomly jump scaring people. There's actually a really cool scene where the father, Jack, thinks he hears something in the middle of the night. He wakes up and he's like, you know, is someone there? But he's not wearing his glasses, so he can't see. Glasses drop down to the floor. So and this one got me. He goes to pick up his glasses so that he can see better, and the way that the camera shot it, as soon as he lifts his head back up, boom, jump scare at the end of his bed, and it scared the living shit out of me. And that is where Jack, I thought he was getting, I guess he kind of got possessed. The entity forces him to float up into the air, and he's almost like seizing in midair. And I think the entity was trying to prove a point because he was sort of one of the non-believers of the family that, oh, no. This, you guys are just all, you know, kind of like crazy. This, we're not really being haunted. It felt like the entity was trying to like teach him a lesson or something like that. But gosh, you know, I really struggled to figure out whether I thought this was a good horror movie or a great one. I thought there were elements of great things, like there are some really well executed jump scares, but I never felt truly afraid of this main demon. He never really had, he does have one moment that shows how capable, like how strong he is compared to other cases, and that was actually my standout moment of this movie with Father Gordon. Father Gordon in this movie was a highlight for me. So he's the one, of course, that is trying to get the Warrens to go investigate this house. But they are reluctant because they've taken a step back. They're just sort of teaching about paranormal activities now. They're not on a on-site, case-to-case basis anymore. So he goes to Pennsylvania himself to help to try and see what's going on with this family because they're desperate. They've gotten the news involved. They want help. So he goes down into the basement, and he has his holy water, and he's flicking the holy water everywhere, and the water starts to like steam and evaporate, and he's looking around like, what in the hell is this? Like, you can tell just by the look on his face, he's never seen anything like this before. Again, going back to the theme of this being something that was so scary that it made them retire. So Father Gordon goes to the church, because he has to get approval from the church before anything official can happen. I think maybe before like not an exorcism, but just for the church to intervene. And all of a sudden, he's talking to somebody there, and then all of a sudden, like, they disappear, and it's almost like he's been transported into sort of, I don't know, maybe a realm in between living and dead. Anyway, the demon starts to kind of show itself a bit, and Father Gordon gets out his cross and he starts reciting prayers. This was my favorite scene in the movie, by the way. He's reciting prayers, blah, 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 blah. I can't remember if the demon actually said anything to him or not, but it sets his cross on fire while he's reciting prayer. Father Gordon, with balls of steel, doesn't let go of the cross, just keeps reciting. Like, I don't remember the exact line, but, something about, the Lord is my shield, like, you have no power, blah, 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 blah. And he holds it until literally his hand is melting from the heat because he just has that much faith in God, which I thought was just such a powerful moment as someone who did grow up as Christian. This man stuck by his beliefs until the very, very end. The demon unfortunately overwhelms Father Gordon. There's nothing he can do. His holy water doesn't work. His cross doesn't work. His prayers are not working. The demon possesses Father Gordon, forces him to walk over to like a telephone cord, and he forces Father Gordon to hang himself. And that was probably like the most impactful part of the movie for me. I believe it's after this they host a funeral for Father Gordon, and this finally kind of motivates the Warrens to actually go investigate. Actually, it was Judy who goes to the source of where Father Gordon was last seen, and again, the Warrens were reluctant. They go to get Judy, and they're like, hey, what are you doing here? We're sorry about what's happening to you, but we can't help. Judy, of course, convinces them, like, hey, these people need us. Since when do we run away? And so now we have the Warrens with the new addition of Tony and a grown-up Judy to try and take on this entity. And they had their hands full. There's some cool moments like with Ed using the Bible to try and again recite like prayer against evil, and the demon sets it on fire. We had another moment where one of the daughters of the Smurl family gets possessed and she's going nuts. She's like, what did she do actually? When she got possessed, I think she forced like Ed to start having a heart attack at one point, and he's like scrambling for his meds. Anyway, the movie wraps up in a really lame way, like very underwhelming. So essentially what happens is this mirror like starts spinning, and I don't know, man. They basically win with like the power of friendship from like an anime. Judy decides, you know what, we're done running, and they all put their hands on the mirror and like force the evil spirits out of it. It just felt lame. I don't know. I honestly don't even remember what happened after that. I think we maybe see Judy and Tony like officially getting married. I don't know. As a send-off to a franchise like this didn't live up to what I wanted it to be. There's solid moments in the film. It's worth seeing. It's worth seeing in theaters even. I do not think it is the best movie in the franchise, and I don't even think it's the second best movie in the franchise. I still hold The Conjuring 1 as one of the scariest movies I've ever watched, and certainly much better than what we got here. If I had to rank another, I'd put Conjuring 2 next, I'd put this third, and then I'd put The Devil Made Me Do It last. I give this movie overall about a 7 out of 10. It's okay. It's good. I won't even say it's okay. It's good. I think they could have done much better. I think, unfortunately, there's not as much of a focus on the horror elements as I wanted there to be. You have like one or two standout moments, and of course, the performances by the two leads, as always, is phenomenal. They have really great chemistry on screen, but I just ended up feeling like, man, this should have been way, way better, and it's the movie's fault. However, this is where, as a reviewer, I have to remind myself that that's just my opinion, because The Conjuring 4 apparently has made the most money out of all of the previous Conjuring movies. So it's made $373 million so far. And it had a budget. Let's check out what the budget was. Okay, it had a budget of $55 million. This movie made a lot of money, man, and yet it's just not my favorite. Now, comparing that to The Conjuring 1, let's just see how it compares. The Conjuring 1 had a budget of $20 million, and it earned $320 million worldwide. Would I say that this one made? $373 million. Okay, very, very surprising to me. Very surprising that it did this well. I guess maybe the marketing team knew what they were doing by hyping it up this much. And like I said, there's things to be enjoyed in this film if you're a fan of the Conjuring franchise. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's the worst send-off ever we've seen for a franchise. It's not. The demon, I think, was a major problem for me where, man, he looks really good, but you should have done more with him, you know? I feel like there's not there's not a moment where where we can physically see him in his form with the axe. I wanted more of that. I know that he possessed Father Gordon and he did some other things, but it just felt a little underwhelming, man. It's just a good to maybe even all right film. That's why I gave it a 7 out of 10. And that's really all I have to say about The Conjuring 4 Last Rites. It's worth seeing, but I would say don't get your hopes up that this is going to be the most amazing horror film you've ever seen, or even the best horror film within the franchise. Thank you for watching. This one specifically goes out to my friend Burnham24. He he was asking when I was going to make this review. It's here, Burnham24. I hope you watch it. I hope you like it. I hope you check this film out for yourself. One last thing before I go, again, just to compare so that I don't think I'm crazy. On Rotten Tomatoes, this film has a 59%. On Rotten Tomatoes for The Conjuring 1, 86%. I don't understand how this movie made more money with such a bad Rotten Tomatoes score compared to the first one. I'm not understanding that. The only thing I can think of is like ticket prices being higher because the Conjuring 1 came out in 2013. Okay? So that's the only thing I could potentially think of. However, I'm rambling now. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. See you in the next video.